Thomas, you are in a state of unconsciousness. You are in a void. Your trauma has put you in a place where, willingly or not, you are asleep. Can you give me a power roll, please, Thomas?
That's a success. That's a 44 under 45.
Excellent. Thomas, you know that this isn't where you are. You know that something horrific and serious has happened, but you're sitting on a beach. Your shoes are off. Trousers are rolled up. Fancy jackets all back over, over to the other side. So you've got a little bit of sitting in the sand attire on. Still seems unusual though, because you're in very expensive clothing and you're just sitting on the beach. You can hear the waves rolling in their threes. Thomas, what do you do?
Do I recognize this beach? Is this the beach that I've been to before?
Give me a history roll, please.
There we go. That is a critical failure. That is a 100 versus 18.
So, critical failure. Do you remember this beach? Yes, you do. You remember this beach. And unfortunately, it's not a memory that you have had access to before. All at once, Thomas, you remember this beach. And the reason you remember this beach with that critical failure is because you are reliving the moment you were last on this beach. You are sitting there as the man you are now. But you're not. When you look at your hands, you look at your legs, you're a boy. 8 years old, maybe? You look to the side of you. It's your mother. She's standing there in a white dress, looking out to the sea. She looks at you, Thomas. She's beautiful. One of the most beautiful women you have ever seen, and that's how you remember her. But until this moment, you don't remember her being at this beach. You don't remember being on this beach. You don't remember being with her on this beach. And when she looks at you and smiles, she has tears in her eyes.
Why are you crying, Mother? Why are you sad?
They're not tears of sadness, Thomas. As you get older, you'll understand that sometimes when people cry, it's because they are so happy and proud. And Thomas, you make me so happy and proud, as does your sister. Now, I must pop off for a little bit, Thomas. Please, look after your sister for me. And do listen to your father. You know he doesn't like to be ignored.
I will, Mother. But must you go?
I'm afraid so, darling.
Could you not stay a little longer? The sun has not yet set. We could build a sandcastle. We could collect shells. You always like collecting shells. Shall we go down to the shoreline and find some shells, Mother?
Give me a power roll, please, Thomas.
That is a regular success, 24 versus 45.
Okay. You blink, and your eyes open, and you see that the entire beach is sandcastles with shells on. I must go, Thomas. I love you, and remember, you are just like me. She begins walking directly into the ocean.
Thomas is going to try and catch up with her, try and grab her hand, anything to stop her going into the sea. There's a sense of foreboding. He knows what's going to happen, but if he can stop it, can I try and grab her hand?
Absolutely.
And pull her away from the sea.
That would be a strength roll, please.
And that is a failure of 54 versus 50. I'm going to try and push this roll.
Okay.
Thomas is going to dig his heels into the sand as she's stepping out through the sea foam, as the tide starts to come in. And he's going to reach his hand as far as he can without actually stepping into the sea itself. Lean forward and try and grab that hand. And with a 58 versus 50, that's another failure.
Okay, so you grab her hand and you try to pull her back. She continues to walk without any resistance from you, and you talked about the sunset. You see this red light trickle over the ocean, almost turning it red, almost turning everything that you see red. Your mother's white dress reflected off the ocean seems to color itself red. You can't seem to let go of your mother's hand. She's not holding on to you, but you can't let go. She's pulling you out into the water. You tried to stop her, but now she is pulling you further out. And as she wades out to her knees, to her hips, to you, this is up to your chest. You're being dragged out. And you get to a point where you are swimming to keep up with her. You're swimming to keep up with her, one hand down because she's got that. You can't let go. And then, Thomas, you find that she's not trying to pull you under, but because you grabbed her, you're not able to let go. She is walking down. She is below the water level. You see the last remnants of her head drop below the sea level, her hair balloon up and then get pulled under. You get pulled under, Thomas. You are underwater. Can you give me a swim roll, please?
I have base in swim at 20, and that's the 37 versus 20. I don't want to spend 17 luck, because that's almost half of it. I'll let the failure ride. You
struggle. You begin flapping. You begin contorting. You're realizing you're not doing enough to kind of keep up at the surface. You're not able to do that. The breath that you've got in your lungs is beginning to burn. You realize that your hand's there, but in that moment as well, your mother stops. You can see that she's looking out underwater way ahead of you, and in the distance there's a red light that pulses. You can see it too. And even though your lungs are burning, you're trapped. Somehow you can't let go of your mother's arm. You see this red pulse, and it calms you. When the red light pulses, and it's a rather large red light, to illuminate this much, the size of a carriage perhaps, but you see, on either side of the red light, when it pulses, quite a few little yellow lights, almost like candles igniting underwater. Your mother turns to you, and in this calm, serene moment where you have no breath left in your lungs, your mother looks you in the face, and her skin is bloated and rotted and swollen and sloughing off in meaty polyps. She looks like she has been underwater for 10 years. But she leans her face very close to yours, Thomas, and says, "Just remember, I'm proud of you. You're a lot like me." You wake up. You're going to need to give me a sanity roll.
That's a failure. That's a 53 versus 40.
That is a 1d6, please, Thomas. This is a memory in a dream.
Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. I mean, the shock of this, that's 5 points of sanity loss. I take it you like an intelligence roll as well.
Oh, yes, please.
And that's 79 versus 65, the one roll I wanted to fail. Excellent.
Okay. So you have failed it. There is obviously 5 points of loss of sanity there, but you don't process it, you don't understand it, you don't navigate it. But there is, I'd like to, I think in this there is a bout of madness here, or there's more of a phobia I'd like you to pick up. And I'm going to give you this specific phobia here. And I'll ask you to read it for me, please.
Necrophobia is a specific phobia, the irrational fear of dead organisms, example, corpses, as well as things associated with death, examples, coffins, tombstones, funerals, and cemeteries. What a useful thing that I've already been to the funeral.
Well, I was about to say, with the aggregation of your recent experiences, this seems like a very natural phobia to be developing, especially with that inciting dream there with your mother. But when you come to, you're not actually able to physically move and check yourself, and you appear to be in a dark room. I'm going to ask for 2 rolls. One is a Intelligence roll. That could be first, please.
That's a failure. That's a 67 versus 65.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But
Would you like
I will spend 2 points of luck on that one, I think.
Okay. Thomas, you very quickly realize with those 2 points of luck spent, and it was a hard moment to try and grasp the reality of the situation, it all comes flooding back. Jenkins, the house, the red mist, stealing you away, wanting to spend time with the best man. And now you find yourself, you realize, tied to a chair. Your feet tied to the legs, your arms tied to the chair's arms, and there's some kind of bag over your head. Not tied, just loose, but there is some kind of a bag over your head. You can even see through the bag a little bit that there are some light sources. But you can hear there seems to be a rather large, empty-ish space. Just from the sounds, the echoes, you think you hear a drip. The other roll, I'll give you the choice. It is either a listen roll, and even though you've got a bag over your head, there wouldn't be much, there's nothing in there which would suggest disadvantage with a listen roll, but there is a spot hidden where you can, through the bag, try and make out what's going on around you. Unless you'd like to attempt something different completely.
No, I think trying to get track of what's going on is a good idea. So I'm going to go for the spot hidden. Try and peer through the holes in the bag. Well, that's a failure. That's a 71 versus 50.
Okay, I'm going to offer you something here. If you push the roll and you succeed, because this bag's not tightly tied around your head, you might be able to remove said bag. But if you fail the roll, then that lands with me to explain to our listeners what happens.
It's a fairly desperate situation, waking up tied to a chair with a bag on your head. I think desperate times call for desperate measures. Let's push that roll. Which is a hard success, 16 versus 50.
Oh, okay. I had something brewing then, which was going to be horrific.
So
okay.
Sorry, Newman.
So you, well, tell me what you do. How'd you get the bag off your head?
Thomas rotates his neck round in a circle. The spine clicks as he does so, and manages to catch the bag on his shoulder and to shift it sideways. It flops half off his head as he can peer around, and with a bit of a shake again, it falls onto the floor.
Thomas, a part of you is going to want to wish you kept the bag on your head. The bag drops to the floor. You bring your head up. You're able to allow your eyes to adjust. There are small, what you can only presume to be oil lanterns, almost kind of pinned to the walls of this cavern? Is this a cave? It's clearly underground somewhere. But what is really unsettling about this place is that even though it is a cave or a cavern, there is some rather advanced, some form of giant glass bowl, a couple of them, almost like tanks, giant tanks, with these huge metal strips, rivets holding them together because they're so large they couldn't have been made in a single piece. So each one is almost the size of a small ballroom, but there's a few of them. They seem to be interlinked. There's lots of chains and pulleys above and around. This is a large construction, but there is next to this. This is what you're facing. You're in a void. You're in a rather empty space. There's a table, some tools. There's some coats and towels, white aprons. Some of them have got mud on them. No, that's not mud. It's darker than mud. The color of your eyes. Is it the sheen? Does everything still look red? Thomas, with your hard success, there are three things that you see. One, in the largest tank before you, there is a large, giant orb, red orb, that seems to be gently pulsing in this gigantic tank of water. Second thing you see is over on the table that you spotted on your right. Oh God, it looks like someone's there. Someone's on the table. It looks like they've been operated on. It looks like... No, that's not a person. Its head is kind of like leaning towards you. The eyes are yellow and almost pulled to the side of its head. slits, black slits in the eyes. The skin isn't skin, it's almost like scaled, it's hard. It's a humanoid thing, but is there some kind of tail? Long tail coming off this thing? But what disturbs you more than anything, Thomas, is that from the center of its skull, across the top of its head, it has been surgically sliced, pulled open, and part of the skull has been sawn out, and you can see the brain beneath. There are a number of instruments which are still currently sticking inside the head of this thing. And as you're looking at it, Thomas, you notice that its mouth is moving slightly, and one of its eyes is blinking. And the last thing you see, Thomas, before there's another potential sanity loss here, as you turn back to look at the red glowing orb in the tank in front of you, Jenkins steps in front of you, grabs your jaw with one of his hands. You see the veins now running down his arm and up into his hands. And as he grabs your jaw and forces it open, in his other hand, he has what I can only describe as a red gelatin substance. And he pushes it into your mouth and rubs it into your teeth, over your tongue and over your lips, pushing it into your mouth, and then holds your jaw shut and holds your nose so that you have to swallow. And all he says as he leans in close is,
"Dearest brother, my best man, I can't have you going hungry on our little get to know one another, can I now?"
Could you make a last sanity roll for me, please, Thomas?
That is an extreme success. A 3 versus 35.
Arguably, because you're already in a bout of madness. This is just an additional to that. All I'm going to say is, and I know there's a lot going on here, but the fact that there isn't time to process it for you in these few moments before you're force-fed this red gelatinous substance, that is another point of sanity loss.
And I'm 1 away from my indefinite insanity.
I think someone's going to have to get some reassurance very quickly.
Yes.
And possibly Mr. Jenkins might be the man to do it. It's the morning, early morning, after having tea at Lord and Lady Hawthorne's. Quite an unforgettable get-together, as you've really gotten to know the Hawthorne family, one of the other ruling families in Kingscombe. Reverend, how have you slept?
The Reverend didn't get a great night's sleep, he has to admit. He was a little confused by the tea leaf readings and whether or not this is actually some kind of parlour game or something a little deeper, as the Hawthornes believe it was. He didn't have much of a chance to look at the stars last night, as he thought he was tired, but no, he couldn't sleep, and he thinks the issue of his uncomfortableness is the issue, the note that he possibly regretfully, thinking back on it, passed to Miss Lambert. So he would like, if she is up, to maybe go and make amends, maybe clear the air a little bit.
Okay, and that's something you're going to do now. I mean, it's early in the morning. It's 6:45.
Yeah, he's pretty sure Miss Lambert is a early bird, and he's pretty sure that she'll be up.
Okay, Reverend, you go over through the house, probably taking a minute to navigate your way through the house. It is a big manor house, as we know.
He needs to explore fully.
So, having spent some time, there are some of the house servants around. Maybe you see a chambermaid running from one room into another, into some of the spare rooms, preparing things. And after a moment or two, you very easily find the door that is Charlotte Lambert's door.
Marvellous. The Reverend will knock very politely and in a quiet, hopefully calming voice. "Charlotte, it's George. I wondered if we might have a word."
Charlotte, are you awake?
Charlotte is awake, yes. I don't think she's been sleeping very much at all this evening. She's discovered this very strange story, which she apparently has written in her sleep, and she can only imagine that maybe she's been half awake, maybe she's been half asleep. She honestly doesn't know what's been happening. But for probably the last half hour or so, she's been sitting in the window seat of her room, going through this manuscript, trying to make sense of it and thinking, this is actually really good. I think there's a real potential in this work here. And she's also remembering the tea leaves and the thing that Lady Hawthorne saw about the apple. And she's suddenly got a great craving for apples, and she's gone down to the kitchen and she's begged the kitchen maids for a big bowl of apples, and she's sitting in the window seat working her way through them and writing notes in the margins of this story. So that's what she's been doing.
Okay, as you're writing your notes in the margins and you've got your bushel of apples, you hear and then you hear those words from the Reverend.
Just one moment, please. And she puts the apples down and she does up her dressing gown and puts a shawl around her shoulders. Not done at all, even though he is family, or is he? She's not a real Prideaux, as she keeps being reminded by him. It's probably still not appropriate to invite a gentleman into her chamber in a state of dishevelment. So she tidies herself up a bit and goes and opens the door a little bit. George?
Did I wake you, Charlotte?
No, I was awake. How can I help you?
Well, I haven't been sleeping too well last night, and I wondered if I might take an opportunity to, well, away from the others, maybe speak to you and clear the air a little. I was going to go for a walk up to the church if you might wish to join me. Of course, if you have other plans, I don't wish to intrude. I feel, well, this trip to Kingscombe has affected us, and yes, many thoughts.
It's certainly been a very unusual journey. Yes, I'd be pleased to take a walk with you. Yes. Just give me a few moments to get dressed. I'll see you downstairs.
Of course. And the Reverend will step backwards and nod slightly, and then make his way downstairs. I think to wait for a short period of time. So he will hopefully. Well, this is the thing, Keeper. Where the incident occurred with the 7 swords.
Yep.
Has that been tidied away? Did that happen? Because sitting with Lady Hawthorne, the Reverend was very sketchy as to quite what had happened. So, is there, have the swords been replaced? Are they back in their thing, or is there like blood stains and chaos everywhere? Quite what's the scene, please?
So you're very welcome to tell me what you'd like to do. Are you looking to see if the swords are on the walls where you first saw them in the hallway? Or are you going into the actual study itself to look at the room where you saw Aldworth's body being pinned to the desk through the back of the chair with these 7 swords?
He's not wishing to investigate particularly, but the entrance hall is where there are many remnants of Lord Prideaux that was. And so he just wants to see the general state of affairs, see if he can notice things have been tidied up, or whether or not it is still in a bit of a state.
So give me a spot hidden. This isn't necessarily whether you see something. This is just as to what degree.
64 versus 36. So
okay.
It's a little early, perhaps.
The house itself, the hallway, everything looks incredibly tidy. I mean, there is a large set of servants here. The staff here, there is a significant amount. You probably only know the names of a few of them, of the ones that actually run teams of other servants within the house. But you do see that even though everything looks tidy, even with that, there are swords missing from their hangings on the wall.
And just looking at those swords, one assumes these are not decorative swords. Could he maybe try a little bit of a history roll? He's not very good at history, but he wants to see whether he can recognize any of the swords from particular battles.
Oh, you can indeed.
After all, Lord Prideaux seems to have been alive for slightly too long, so he might have been into some interesting battles. So with his history roll, he's just not woken up yet. That's a 71 versus 31.
Unfortunately not. What you can see from the one or two that are still there, that these are naval sabers. And you can see that they are of a style. With your knowledge of swords, is that contemporary? Is that 1812? Is that 1712? Is that 1612? Probably not 1612, but it's hard to pin it down, unfortunately.
He'll maybe ask Harris. He does need to have a good long chat with Harris about the entire estate, actually. But yes, first things first. He will maybe sit himself down in a chair and wait for Ms Lambert to come.
Excellent. And Reverend, have a think, just while I'm with Charlotte, have a think if there's anything that you would want the Reverend to take with him on his little sojourn.
He has probably already packed it, but yes, I shall have a think.
Charlotte, anything you'd like to do? Anything you'd like to pack with you on your way to the church with the good Reverend?
No, I don't think so. I think she'll just get dressed in whatever is appropriate for church going this time of the morning with a bonnet. She doesn't have time to call a maid to help her get dressed, but I think she's fine. She can just put herself together fairly quickly. And she'll go downstairs with a shawl and a bonnet over her arm, and she's tying up the lace on her bonnet when she comes in to see the Reverend.
Can I ask you, and I probably should have asked the same from the Reverend, but I feel with his standard outfit, shall we say, clothes of office, there's a bit of an easier time for the Reverend here. Charlotte waking up in a bit of a rush putting these things together. Can you give me a fashion roll, please?
Oh, was that for me, sorry, or for the Reverend?
For you, Charlotte, sorry. Yeah.
For me, sorry. Okay. That is a hard success. 16 against 53. She's looking stylish and very appropriate.
Not only do you manage to throw a few things together, but as you do, in these thoughts of these writings that you've found in your room, in your hand, the tea readings that you've had with Lady Hawthorne, the events of the last day, the lake, the funeral, Philippe. It's all become a lot, and it's almost so much that you take a moment where you don't worry about what you're wearing. But by the product of not worrying about what you're wearing, you actually pick the most wonderful outfit because you're not second-guessing yourself. You're not thinking, oh my God, what if I wear this with this? What will they say? And if I tie this like this and this and this? No, those thoughts are gone. You just put it all on and you put it all together, and it looks amazing. It looks fantastic. And as you arrive downstairs, Reverend, you absolutely notice that Charlotte looks probably the best she's looked since you've left Hampshire.
Fantastic. And the Reverend will say so. And, well, goodness, Miss Charlotte, may I say you're looking very well today.
Thank you. It's looks so much better when it's not drenched in seawater, this dress.
Goodness me. Yes, that is quite correct. Shall we?
On your exit from Prideaux Manor out onto the stone gravel drive before you, you have a walk into town, not too far, but you have a walk into town. You're going to be crossing over the bridge, over the river, and then you have to walk a little through town before you loop back on. You know this path, so you don't need a guide because this is exactly where you went when you went to Lord Matthew Prideaux's funeral. I'm going to ask, is there anything that either of you two would like to discuss with each other en route to the church?
Oh, goodness, yes.
Then please have at it. If I interject at any point, it may be due to the location or due to, well, let's see what you say to each other, shall we?
There we are. Well, the Reverend has probably been rehearsing this quite a bit because he needs to strike the authority of the family, but equally he needs to recognize the difficult situation. So that's what he's going for. Whether he actually comes out with that remains to be seen. But hopefully Miss Lambert is noticing that he's using first names and not titles. But as I say, he simply, slightly awkwardly says, well, it's a lovely day to clear the air, and if I may, I'd like to, well, I'd like to offer an apology, Charlotte. It's been quite a time since we've left Hampshire, and I feel very responsible for what has happened to you. When I wrote you that note, well, I wish I could have written more, because it was a very small piece of paper. You seemed to be in distress, and I wanted to use some words to almost shock you out of whatever you were experiencing. And, well, I can see now, I believe it did upset you, and I am sorry. If I'd have had more of an opportunity, I might have asked you to step outside with me to have a quiet word. But that terrible thing happened with... and he'll look at Charlotte and say, that thing that happened with Master Thomas. It did happen to Master Thomas, didn't it? Almost looking for some kind of corroboration of things.
I think I'd like you both to give me I think there's a power roll there.
Okay.
My favourite type of roll.
Power roll coming up. Oh, that is a success of 35 against 55.
Oh, the Reverend is in the zone. That is an extreme success. 2 versus 60.
Ooh, okay.
We are due a fumble very soon.
Yes, we are.
Well, we had enough fumbles last week.
We did.
Okay, so I think what we're going to say with regard to these power rolls is you both have recollections. You both have memories. They're still clouded, but something comes through. Charlotte, you remember Thomas being held by someone, pulled and dragged. You think it was that Jenkins fellow, that really distasteful fellow who's been hounding you, and the letters he's been sending to Anastasia is disgraceful. And that comes back to you. That comes rushing back to you. You seem to remember, Charlotte, was there smoke? You can't quite. It's almost like it's a step too far. It's on the tip of your tongue. Was there smoke? Reverend, you remember, with your extreme success, fighting this repressed, hidden memory. And this is something that's been haunting you a little recently. Memories. Missing memories. You're in Kingscombe, Reverend. You grew up here as a child, and yet this place is strange to you. You don't remember it. Just so happens you had memories of playing in the river. You find yourself crossing the bridge as this is happening.
As he's walking across the river, he possibly asks at the same time, did something happen to Thomas? And then he realizes where he's standing, and he will nervously look down, almost in a way that he hopes Charlotte will notice, because he kind of wants to see, let her see that he's human after all, and looking down at the bridge and being a little perturbed might lead to some inquiry, because he knows Charlotte is sharp as a tack, and he wants to let down his defenses a little.
Okay.
So Charlotte has been taking in everything that George has been saying, and she knows that he's somebody with a good heart. She knows that he always does try to do the best for the family, but things have been going wrong ever since they left Prideaux Manor, or Shepford Manor, sorry. And she's kind of happy in a way that he recognizes this as well, and is glad that they can be out here without the expectations of society and without the expectations of everybody around them, that they can just maybe open up a little bit. So she kind of heaves a bit of a sigh and says, George, I don't know what to say. It feels like ever since we left the house, everything's just gone so strange. And Chambers, it was when Chambers died, and that terrible symbol in the bookshelf walls, and everything's different. And it feels as though things are slipping away from me. And there's something wrong. I think you feel it too.
Reverend, when Charlotte talks about Chambers and that symbol, you and Charlotte, unbeknown to Charlotte, you are standing on the spot on the bridge, where on the underside of the bridge, as a child, you saw that symbol. You are standing almost in the center of that symbol now.
The Reverend George will look at Charlotte and nod emphatically and say, I agree. Things are... Well, Charlotte, I'm remembering things about this place that somehow tie into everything. I mean, I wouldn't recommend it now, but as a child, I remember seeing that precise symbol on the underside of this very bridge that we are standing upon. How is that? That's why I want us to go, well, like I say, clear the air, because, you know, if it was anybody else other than you, Charlotte, we would probably be looking at something rather more serious involving, homes for people whose minds have slipped away from them. But I know you. You are a very, very smart young lady. Very passionate as well. I can see where Miss Anastasia gets things from. But equally, we need to find out what is causing our issues and hopefully work together. You may not carry the name of Prideaux, but you demonstrated to me that you were very much a Prideaux when you were running the house in Master Adam's absence. And, as I say, you should hold your head high. You are here in Kingscombe with the Prideaux family, and let me assure you now, I will certainly stand by you, and I hope you can come to me with whatever issues. And equally, Charlotte, I don't have anybody to talk to here. I would very much value your counsel, if perhaps every so often we could meet and take a little walk to church. It would certainly help me, and I would be very grateful in your debt.
Charlotte puts her hand on his arm and gives a little smile. I would like that, George. And that means a lot to me. I feel half in and half out of this family sometimes. I don't feel like a real Prideaux. I am the widow Lambert, but I am one of you as well.
Exactly. You have come out of mourning. You have done all you can to honor your departed husband. And I think, Kingscombe does have a certain amount of, what is the phrase? Je ne sais quoi?
Je ne sais quoi.
Good. But I think, and he looks around almost, the sooner we can correct affairs here in Kingscombe, the better. I would be very glad when we can leave this town behind us. But I need to unlock some memories. I think my brothers and I may have had a good time here. We may not have. I'm hoping the church is going to unlock some of the memories. Would you mind if we progressed and got off this wretched bridge?
Of course, but wouldn't you like to look underneath the bridge now? Just to see if this symbol is still here?
Funny you should say that.
Reverend,
not really.
You feel for a moment, as you say, not really, your childhood stutter. Just, no, not...
Not really. I would, I don't fancy looking under the bridge. Just just at the moment, Miss Lambert. I wouldn't want to get my coat dirty, and I might splash you with water, and you in that dress and water. You know, I am perplexed at what that is all about. You say it was definitely seawater, and we'll start to... He'll kind of use the momentum of slightly changing the subject to usher themselves off the bridge.
So as you're walking now, you leave the bridge, you hear that the running water kind of begins to distance itself as you move further into the town. And even at this early time, you know, the town itself, it's busy, it's thriving, you know, there's a fishing community. There's lots going on. There's lots of people and carriages and horses and interactions. It's lively, and people seem to, whether they know exactly who you are, they know of what class you are, and they step out of your way. They'll even go so far as to bow. Some even, perhaps those that would risk it, even if they are still in a profession, but of a relatively good financial position, they might even attempt a not so low bow, but a bit of a nod and a welcome and a wave. And it's all done in a very generous and very caring way. You don't sense any ill will.
That's good. If anybody wishes to greet the Reverend with some warm, fresh bread or some rolls or something like that, he would be delighted to offer one to Charlotte and have a little munch as they walk up the hill.
And I imagine there's obviously some beautiful little child who's come running up with a few flowers, Charlotte, and given them to you, and you almost feel like celebrities, and you are, to a degree, you are the Prideaux. You are celebrities in this environment. And it's only when you get to the church door, which is open, you see that there's a few things. Firstly, Reverend, you asked Charlotte about the seawater and the dress, but really, you were still a little bit distracted. You were still thinking on that moment with Thomas. You were still thinking on that moment in the dining room. Now, the memory is slightly clouded. No, not clouded. It's misty. Actually misty. In the dining room. You can't remember how. You can't remember why. You remember seeing Jenkins standing with Thomas, or Thomas was standing with Jenkins. Were they walking together? They left through they left through the back of the dining room.
The window.
They left through the window.
Yes. And not that I want to metagame a little, but might that mist be slightly smoky? Does it seem like a natural mist, or is it a bonfire sort of? You know, how does he feel about this mist? Can he define a smell? Was something on fire? Was it fog? Was it different?
With a 2 versus a 6 on your power roll and your extreme success, none of those things are true. This mist tastes like salt. This mist is red. This mist floats through the air, and you remember the mist, was it moving independently of any breeze? Was it moving of its own accord? You remember the mist reaching up to you, to your face, and swiping at it, only for it to reform. And that's where the memory fades. But you arrive at the church door, and you see in. You can see the Reverend is there, and Charlotte, you can see the same as well. Reverend Marsh, he's at the altar, and he's standing behind it with a book open, and there are 3 people kneeling down before him at the altar, and he's reciting something. So you can also see Charlotte. You can see someone sitting in the back pews as well, as if they're waiting, and Reverend George. These 3 people are being given some kind of communion from what you can recognize.
Is it, what day is it?
It is Tuesday the 10th. The funeral was on the 8th. The tea party was on the 9th. And you have awoken this morning on the 10th.
The Reverend usually does his even song on a Wednesday. He'll turn to Charlotte and say, do you think we should go in, or would you prefer to have a walk outside?
Oh, I think we should go in. That's why we're here, isn't it?
Well, yes, it is.
We could stay at the back until the service is over, maybe.
That sounds like a good idea. I shall keep my voice down and just try and remember some things. How do you relive your memories, Charlotte? Is there a certain technique you do? My head is so full of the stars and the books and the people that we have to meet. It's very rare I get a chance to think about my past.
Well, I don't know, really. My past doesn't really seem to be my past anymore.
How do you mean?
He was here. He was here. I am not a madwoman, and I'm not imagining it. Philippe was here.
Charlotte?
Mm-hmm.
Can you give me a spot hidden, please?
Oh.
If Philippe is waving from the front of the church.
That was a success of 28 against 44.
Philippe is waving from the back of the church. He is the gentleman in the pews at the back that you saw when you came in. The Reverend didn't see him.
And Charlotte stops dead. If the Reverend didn't see him, should she go to him? Should she not go to him?
Well,
should she pretend there's nothing there?
I say the Reverend didn't see him. Whether Charlotte recognizes the Reverend doesn't see him, maybe this is the opportunity to ask and find out.
George, what, or rather who, do you see on that pew over there? Describe the person you see.
The Reverend looks over to the pew that Charlotte is pointing at and hopes to see somebody to describe.
No, you don't. At all. No one there. Empty pews all the way through. The only people in this church, Reverend, are you, Ms Lambert, the good Reverend Marsh, and the 3 townsfolk who are kneeling before the altar, receiving some form of communion that you can't quite see from where you are.
That's okay with you, my dear keeper. I'm just gonna put my finger in front of my mouth.
Give the old shush sign.
Yeah.
Indeed.
I'm sorry, Charlotte. Am I looking in the right direction? I can't see anybody at the pews. And he'll look over and to see if somebody was sitting there and then maybe is knelt down to pray.
Oh, it's nothing. Just a trick of the light, and not enough sleep.
Is that a
And too many
persuade roll?
apples.
Is that a persuade roll? Apples can only go so far. I think that's a persuade roll.
Okay, let's try a persuade roll. Oh, that was a failure of 94 against 40. Not very
Reverend?
subtle, are Charlotte?
You don't believe a word that Charlotte is saying, because as she says all those things, she is almost in a monotone voice and staring at the exact spot she's telling you no one is.
Okay. Oh, that's fine. Well, I mean, it looks like a nice spot. Would you like to perhaps take a seat over there?
Yes, I think I would.
Please tell me if it makes you feel uncomfortable. I don't know where is a good place to sit in this little church just yet, but your eye seems to have been drawn to it. Let us indulge your vision.
As you're saying that, Reverend, you can see, and you kind of look back to Reverend Marsh, who has these kind of these 3 townsfolk before him. He does he almost kind of, as he's giving over these tiny little they almost look like he's got this metal bowl, and it looks like that he's taking out these small little cubes and then putting them in the mouth of each one of these 3 congregation members who are kneeling before him. And just as he kind of does the second one, he sees you, and you can see a big beaming smile across his face, and he kind of he nods. He's almost resisting the urge to just call out and go, Reverend Prideaux, lovely to see you. But you get that intention, you get that energy from him that he's very excited to see you. But then you see him almost kind of pull a little bit of a better carry on face, and he just gives the last bit of communion. You can hear that he is speaking something as well, but it's from where you are, because it's almost a very private moment. It's hard to pinpoint exactly the words that are being used.
He hasn't got his common prayer book with him anyway. He does get a little lost without it. Well, there we go. Is this suitable, Charlotte? I do wish I could remember this church. If I was here as a child, I surely would remember things. Did you go to church very often when you were a child? Were you dragged along like I was?
Well, I was never fervently religious, but yes, we went on Sundays, of course.
Of course. Well, I always say to people, the key to going to church is be faithful and not so much religious. So long as you carry God with you, then God will be with you. Don't need to go to church to it. So, like I say your prayers at night, and God will always be with you.
That is a comforting thought. My husband was not a religious man.
On that note, as you react to was not a religious man, and you feel that taste, that metaphorical slap in that moment, whether it was meant or not. Reverend Marsh,
not at all.
you see his hand kind of raised, and he kind of pootles over to you, some quick steps. Oh, hello. Oh, so glad you could be back here. It's lovely. I'm so pleased. Please do tell me when you're thinking of coming. We could make much more of a welcome for you. Reverend Prideaux, Ms Lambert, I believe it was, wasn't it?
Miss Lambert.
Yes, Charlotte Lambert.
Lambert, huge apologies. Would you mind if I just stole the good Reverend for a moment? I've spoken to some of my congregation members, and there's a little thing that we do, and I asked if they wouldn't mind whether the Reverend would be a bit of a momentary benefactor, and they are very excited. Reverend, hopefully it's not something you can say no to. Come on.
Oh, well, he'll flash a sort of like a look to Charlotte, almost rolling his eyes, but they have this kind of a communication that they've developed over the 15 months or so, when they've been looking at servants saying, oh God, not this one. And so he'll flash that smile and say, do excuse me, I'll be right back. And
Of course.
Do excuse us, Miss Lambert. The church calls. And
Of course.
And Reverend, as you get up, Reverend Marsh almost kind of puts his arm in your arm and kind of jollily marches you down the nave all the way to where he was at the altar. Charlotte, just as the Reverend goes, you can see just off to the side from where you are, there seems to be an open door leading into, it looks like a study, maybe a private chamber, which obviously is private and respectful. But you noticed when you first came to this church that there were some quite unusual stained glass pieces over the entrance as you came in. And stained glass is quite an unusual feature in churches these days, perhaps in medieval times, but this seems to have stayed the course. And yet the images depicted seem to have relevance past medieval times. Through this open door, with your previous spot hidden roll, you think you can actually see a glint, a glimmer of stained glass. And the reason it catches your eye is because what you think you see on it is red. Reverend, you're brought down to the front. Reverend Marsh is gets you down there. The three congregation townsfolk are on their knees. You can see they're just kind of chewing and swallowing on something. And then Reverend Marsh brings you around to the front. Oh, right. Well, this is quite wonderful. May I introduce in person Reverend Prideaux. This is Reverend Prideaux. He is... Oh, and we're so excited to have you here. Reverend, we have a... what's the best way to put this? We have a lottery, let's say. We take those who have been... I think that it's not about being... and I don't really like to use the word, but it's not about being... worthy. It's about those who believe. And we all believe. We all believe in Kingscote. We all believe in the sleeping Lord. We all believe that here miracles happen. And that belief, well, I can tell you, that belief isn't just something we put faith in. We've seen it. Miracles happen. And this is the exciting part, Reverend Prideaux, for our next miracle, we would like you to choose who our next, shall we say, blessed member of the congregation is. But there is a trick to it, Reverend. It's not something you can just do. It's something that we do together. It's something that we close our eyes. If you will, Reverend Prideaux, I'm going to, if it's okay, they've had their communion, and I would ask, there's just this small little cup here. If you could drink this, and then what I'm going to ask you to do is just pop 2 fingers just on the forehead of each of these 3 wonderful, wonderful people. And then once you've done that, I don't think I need to explain much more. The truth will be apparent. It will be there for all of us to see. So, Reverend, and he kind of turns around to the altar and then brings back a small plate with this little silver goblet on it. It just looks like it's got red wine in it.
Mm-hmm. He is. He's got used to the taste of vin sacro, or whatever the Regency equivalent of it is. Well, goodness, this is quite a surprise to me. A lottery, you say? As he looks over the glass and he looks down at the people and can he try another one of his etiquette rolls to politely, but not in an offensive way, make some comments that will make his position slightly clearer, but equally have it be accepted that the Reverend is right? I know that's a lot to feed into a bit of a role, but
ask me again. What's the result you would like to try and get out of this?
So the Reverend wants to sense check the Reverend Marsh. Okay. The lottery, that is gambling. The trick to it is magic. And certainly nothing that the church does is gambling or magic. It's not a stage show. And he wants to get that across, that this is a solemn duty, and maybe he's forgotten that the blessing of the Lord is not something that is done through man, but is done through the power of the Lord. And he wants to try and everything.
Yeah, so he's trying to give a heavy, soft, heavy religious reasoning.
Let's remember where we are.
Yeah, religious reasoning, absolutely.
What would you prefer? I can offer you
religion.
Fine, okay. Here we go. Remember, folks, we're expecting a fumble. But that's a success. 41 versus 60. So not a hard success, but a normal success.
Let's have him roll as well.
A lottery in church. Goodness me.
Well, I'm not even going to tell you here that he's succeeded or not. I'm gonna have it through the language for you to engage with. Oh, Reverend Prideaux, you misunderstand. When we say lottery, it's not about us gambling here. Nobody is putting themselves in a place where they're betting away with anything. We call it a lottery because we like to believe that everybody under this congregation, everybody who is in the dreams of our Lord, will be seen. But a lottery is the language of the people for us, and your part here, and quite right, Reverend Prideaux, I couldn't have said it better myself. In fact, I envy your turn of phrase. Right now, you are the divining rod for the Lord, not you acting, but acting through you. And I quite applaud your words and your devotion to making sure these congregation members understand clearly what is happening here. It's not luck. And he looks at them. It's not luck. We're chosen through the dreams of our Lord. It's a miracle.
He,
Reverend? And he holds out the drink again. Please?
he's a little uncomfortable of this, but, you know, these are people. He's almost thinking back to the tea leaves, thinking there might be, what did the tea leaves say, that there was some kind of misunderstanding or reputation or something that could lead to something. So he is going to say, quite, and not hurriedly, but certainly not trying to think about it too much. He'll see whether or not the Reverend has poured a decent amount of Vin Sacra, because the last thing you want to be drinking is everybody else's spit at the bottom of the cup. So there's enough to dilute that. He'll be fine with that. And the instructions were to drink some of the wine, and then place a couple of fingers onto. Please describe the people. Do I bless all of them, or is it just the one I'm choosing?
Two fingers on the forehead, just for a moment, and Reverend, you'll know. If it's their turn for a miracle, you'll know.
Good. He'll size them up and see which seems to be the most wealthiest, because if the wealthiest get attention from the Reverend, it's usually reflected in the collection. And then he'll take a drink, aim for the wealthiest one, but I fear there may be some sort of roll coming my way, Keeper.
Well, what's going to happen is you've taken the drink, and then there are three members of the congregation. There is a woman, and there are two men. You don't know their names, so what I'm going to ask you to do is, if you could roll a d6 for me and then halve it.
Sure. Let's have a look. We have a 1, so that is number 1.
So you put your two fingers on the one gentleman's forehead, and he looks like the wealthiest. And there's just this slightly uncomfortable moment where you've got fingers on someone's forehead in a church because you've been told to do it. Nothing happens. Then you move those fingers in a very practiced, reverend way.
Exactly.
So
He's not expecting anything to happen when he has blessed people many times before. And these are well before the days when people would fall over in church. They would just be glad to be touched.
Exactly. There's a moment on the second person, the second gentleman, but you realize it's just the kind of the aftertaste of the sacrament just lingered a little bit, and just a bit different to what you have at home.
Yes, no doubt.
Different grape, perhaps. And then you move your fingers over to the young lady. As your fingers make contact with her head, her eyes open wide, your arm sticks almost as if it's stuck. You go rigid in your body, and you feel cold. Cold racks itself through you, and you see something, Reverend.
Oh boy.
You see something horrible.
Please not the throne.
But we'll come back to that in a second. Charlotte, you're in a pew sitting with Philippe, and what do you do?
Charlotte folds her hands in front of her and bows her head a little bit and looks as though she's praying, but she isn't praying. She's talking very quietly to Philippe, who is sitting next to her, and nobody else seems to be able to see him. You're here, aren't you? I'm not imagining it. You are. You're really here.
As always, Charlotte, of course. Don't be ridiculous. Please tell me, what have you done?
What do you mean, what have I done?
What have you done, Charlotte? Why? Why am I in church right now?
I suppose you're in church because I'm in church.
Do you believe in
George?
God, Charlotte?
Is that really important right now?
Of course it is. Of course it is. You're not a
don't know, I
child.
suppose it's-
You don't believe in fairy tales, do you?
I do when I'm writing them.
Writing them. What do you mean?
Well, you know, my writing.
Oh,
I
you're writing.
tried to, everything I was trying to collect while we were traveling in France and Germany and trying to rewrite them, and then the Brothers Grimm published first. And I thought I'm never going to be a success after that.
You've always been talented, Charlotte. If
Thank
you are
you.
writing something, then I trust it to be good, to be excellent. That a lot of people will learn from it.
I woke up this morning and I must have written something in my sleep. I must have, I don't know, been sleepwalking, only sleep writing. I don't have any memory of it, but it was good. It was really, really good.
So what is it about? Tell me,
Well,
my dear.
I'm not sure yet. It's about a man who doesn't really know who he is.
Uh-huh.
And he looks into the mirror and his reflection speaks to him.
Oh, that's good. That's really good. Reflections. They are interesting, aren't they?
What do you mean?
I mean, Charlotte, that it's another world. It is a copy of ourselves. A perfect copy, is it? Or is it not?
I never thought of it that way, but yes, I suppose it is.
Charlotte, this Reverend, this George, he's not a good influence, is he?
I think he tries to be. I think he's just sometimes
Lost?
a little confused. Yes, lost.
Mhm.
Lost, that's the word for it, lost.
Yeah, that's right. Completely lost. He doesn't know a thing. Do you think he believes in God?
I think it's a habit. I think it
he's
gives him
pretty...
strength.
Yes, right. I think he's pretty good at faking it. That's what I think. The whole church thing. He can't.
Fake
He
it.
can't be believing in it.
You really think so?
Of course. I mean, look at him. He's a manipulating twat. That's what he is. He tells you to be a good dog. A good, goody two-shoes.
Oh, you were always a rebel, my love.
No, dear. I just want you to not be manipulated by him. I need to warn you. You can't always be in the shadows of those people, of those Prideaux. We need to take action now, don't we?
What sort of action?
Well, first, we shouldn't be in a church. That's the first kind of action, of course.
Oh,
And then I want you to explain, we were on a boat. What did happen next?
We were on a boat. It was my dream.
What have you done, Charlotte? No, it wasn't a dream. We were there. Don't tell me it was a dream.
Philippe,
And then I disappeared, and now I'm here in a church. What are you doing to me, Charlotte? What are you doing to me? Why do you want me to suffer again?
I don't, Philippe, please. I never wanted you to suffer.
Charlotte. Oh, je t'aime tellement. But I need you to be strong. I don't need you to be weak.
Charlotte, you notice the more Philippe is angered and disappointed by you, his sweats come on. His colour slowly begins to drain. Whenever you don't follow his wisdom, he's caring for you, he's loving you, he's trying to protect you. And whenever you seem, or whenever Philippe sees that you're acting against that love and that care that you get from no one else, you see that it hurts him.
You're not well. It's happening again, isn't it?
No, I'm fine. I'm fine.
Let's get out of here.
Yeah, let's.
Come on,
I need
let's
some
just
fresh
go outside.
air. Yes, great.
Yes. Come on, let's go.
Charlotte, would you give me your hand?
Yes, always. And she puts her hand in his and stands up from the pew.
Follow me outside. I need you to promise me something.
What is it?
You... Wait. Just wait for us to be outside.
Charlotte, you're hand in hand with Philippe, walking out of the church, and you glance back and you see Reverend George now involved in this communion that Reverend Marsh was leading. And as you scan your head back, you see that open door again, that glint of red. I'm going to have to ask you for another spot hidden if you'd like to see, as you're walking past, what you thought you saw.
Definitely. I think she will certainly turn her head a little bit and try and look in that direction. And that was a success of 35 against 44.
You see, Charlotte, as you're walking past, another stained glass. And this one is in a more oval shape. Could you describe it to us, what it is you think you see?
Yes, it's a stained glass window of a red background. And it looks almost like maybe buildings on the side of a river, or maybe on a coastline somewhere. There's a sort of a patch of blue at the bottom, and then there's a green line, and then the rest of it is red. So it's almost like a land with roads leading across it. And there are 4 buildings in different colours. There's one which is pink and white, there's one which is a sort of lilac colour, and there's 2 which are yellow and white. It's quite stylised. It's quite difficult to make out exactly what it's supposed to be, other than a map of some kind, perhaps.
Can I ask you for an intelligence roll, please, Charlotte?
You can. And that's a hard success of 19 against 45.
Okay, well, with a hard success, Charlotte, you recognise that this red oval that contains this image, this red circle, within that you have, as you say, the coast at the bottom, you have the ocean at the bottom, and then you have the coastline. And then inside of that, you have this collection of buildings and roads, not too dissimilar to Kingscombe. Now, when you rode into Kingscombe on your carriage, you saw that there were 3 manor houses, large manor houses that overlooked the town. One to the north, one to the east, and one to the southwest. You don't remember there being a central key building. But it would seem a mighty coincidence that you're looking at a stained glass window in this red orb that has these 4 buildings, one of which is at the center of the other 3. Seems to be very representative of Kingscombe and perhaps some crucial locations to the people of Kingscombe. Reverend George, you touched this lady's forehead. Her eyes rolled back in her head. You went rigid, cold, rippled through your body, but not just cold, freezing cold. The depths of the ocean cold. And you saw something so confusing that it forces you to really question in this moment what you believe. You see, Reverend, underwater, you see these rocks at the bottom of this body of water. And sitting on those rocks is this beautiful, glistening red orb. And it seems to pulse or radiate its own red essence, almost like a heartbeat. As it does, you see that something pulses into the water. There's a red essence in the water, pulsing off this orb, off this thing. Then you realize you're not in the water, Reverend. You see a glimmer in front of you. Is it glass? Are you standing behind glass? It's at that moment, Reverend, that out of the corner of your eye, just to the side of where you're looking, you see that there is another face in the glass, as if someone is standing behind you, looking at the same thing you're looking at. But before you can work out exactly who it is, and you know who it is, but before you can work out who it is, you see their mouth moving, and you fixate on their mouth, and you see them mouthing the words, "Help me. Find me." It's the face of your nephew, Lord Thomas Prideaux. Thank you for joining us for Cult and Culpability. Remember, you can find us at www.miskatonicplayhouse.com, and you can also visit the main stage for other scenarios from the Miskatonic Playhouse with links in the show notes below. Please like and subscribe, and if you can spare a minute to leave a review, it makes a huge difference to other like-minded listeners who will be able to find and enjoy our work. Until next time, when the curtain rises again.